Hello, everyone, and welcome to Session 7, Embodied in Spiritual Learning by Carl and Don.
In this session, we'll first introduce the meaning of embodied and spiritual learning and highlight relevant aspects of both concepts as they relate to adult learners. We'll also critically explore both learnings through the behaviorist and constructivist perspectives to guide the connection between how body and mind process information and experiences that result in learning. Finally, we'll explore the possibilities and benefits of embodied and spiritual learning.
The learning objectives for Session 7 will be, by the end of this week's lesson, you will be able to define and describe embodied and spiritual learning, also critically evaluate embodied and spiritual learning from the behaviorist and constructivist perspectives. You'll also discover the benefits of applying embodied and spiritual learning as an adult learner in the education and professional areas.
Definition. Simply put, embodied learning involves being attentive to the body and its experiences as a way of knowing. Spiritual learning is the experience of feeling expanded beyond the normal limits of body and mind, of feeling connected to aspects of the external world that are of value to me, to others, to Earth, and to a greater cosmic being. As you continue to ponder about embodied and spiritual learning, please keep this thought in mind. Learning is a complex behavior and a holistic process that involves how we think, the cognitive, how we feel, the affective, and how we do something, the body.
Embodied learning lends to the belief that traditional and cognitive science beliefs of the philosophy of functionalism are flawed and require further discussion to bridge the gap between theory and practice. In recent years, embodied cognition was heavily debated between Adams, Chimero, and Shapiro. The science of embodied learning attempted to understand the interrelationships of the physical body and situational cognition. Embodied learning is a new field of study that consists of three key components: embodied learning, somatic learning, and embodied cognition. Embodied learning is an emerging field of education that blends human and computer interaction with the result of living the solution to leverage optimal learning. Somatic learning is centered in the body, learning disciplines like Tai Chi, yoga, relaxation exercises. Somatic learning is an education approach that implies individuals learn from the interaction of self and environment. Somatic or embodied knowing is the experimental knowledge that involves senses, perceptions, and mind-body action and reaction. Embodied cognition, as described by Chevelle, locates the body at the intersection of culture and cognition. Intuitive knowledge, or the sense of knowing. Embodied cognition is a learning theory that many features of cognition are shaped by aspects of the entire body to include motor, perception, and interactions with the environment. The behaviorist perspective is this: the mind is not only connected to the body, but the body also influences the mind. A leader researcher of cognitive science is Professor George Lakoff, who studied the field of linguistics. Lakoff theorized the mind was actually not separate from the body. Lakoff's research in the field of linguistics led him to believe that grammar was dependent on the meaning. Lakoff developed a theory called grammar semantics that led to his publishing of the book, Metaphors We Live By, back in 1979. In the book, the author explains a fundamental mechanism of the mind, one that allows us to use what we know about our fundamental and physical and social experiences, is to provide understanding of countless other subjects. As an example of Lakoff's metaphor, I demolished his argument, or your claims are indefensible.
From a constructivist perspective, and researchers like Bartlett, Brenner, and Rogoff, embodied learning allows learners to be active in constructing their own knowledge, and social interactions are important in this knowledge construction process. Embodied learning also allows learners to elaborate or engage in activities to construct meaning from experience, which in turn can produce reflective practice. According to our textbook, the key to recognizing life experiences as sites of embodied learning is to recognize that it is not just the mind that is having the experience, but the body is too, and attending to what we're learning through the body is embodied learning. Let's test this out.
Let's apply what we learned. Take a look at your posture at this very moment. Think about these two questions. How are you feeling? And does your posture match how you're feeling? Now watch this short clip by clicking on the link below.
So I want to start by offering you a free, no-tech life hack, and all it requires of you is this, that you change your posture for 2 minutes. I became especially interested in nonverbal expressions of power and dominance. And what are nonverbal expressions of power and dominance? Well, so in the animal kingdom, they are about expanding. So you make yourself big, you stretch out, and humans do the same thing. So they do this both when they have power sort of chronically, and also when they're feeling powerful in the moment. So powerful people tend to be, not surprisingly, more assertive and more confident. Physiologically, there also are differences on two key hormones, testosterone, which is the dominance hormone, and cortisol, which is the stress hormone. We decided to bring people into the lab and run a little experiment, and these people adopted for 2 minutes high power poses or low power poses. And I'm just going to show you 5 of the poses, although they took on only 2. This is what happens. They come in, they spit into a vial. We, for 2 minutes, say, you need to do this or this. We then ask them, how powerful do you feel on a series of items? And then we take another saliva sample. Here's what we find on testosterone. From their baseline when they come in, high-power people experience about a 20% increase, and low-power people experience about a 10% decrease. Here's what you get on cortisol. High-power people experience about a 25% decrease, and the low-power people experience about a 15% increase. So 2 minutes lead to these hormonal changes that configure your brain to basically be either assertive, confident, and comfortable, or really stress-reactive. But the next question, of course, is, can power posing for a few minutes really change your life in meaningful ways? And so what matters, where you want to use this is evaluative situations. We decided that the one that most people could relate to was the job interview. What do you do before you go into a job interview? You do this, right? You're sitting down, you're looking at your notes, you're hunching up, making yourself small, when really what you should be doing maybe is this, like in the bathroom. Okay, so we bring people into a lab, and they do either high or low power poses again. They go through a very stressful job interview. It's 5 minutes long. They are being recorded. They're being judged also. We then have these coders look at these tapes, 4 of them. They're blind to the hypothesis. They're blind to the conditions. They have no idea who's been posing in what pose. They end up looking at these sets of tapes, and they say, oh, we want to hire these people, all the high power posers. We don't want to hire these people. But what's driving it? It's not about the content of the speech. It's about the presence that they're bringing to the speech. The last thing I want to leave you with is this. Tiny tweaks can lead to big changes. Before you go into the next stressful evaluative situation, for 2 minutes, try doing this in the elevator, in a bathroom stall, at your desk behind closed doors. That's what you want to do. Configure your brain to cope the best in that situation. Get your testosterone up, get your cortisol down, and it can significantly change the outcomes of their life. Thank you.
Spirituality in learning is about connection, meaning-making, identity development, constructing knowledge through unconscious and symbolic processes, and that is always present in the learning environment and often happens by surprise. Spirituality has been present in adult development, social movements, and yes, the workplace. Kent Rhodes from Pepperdine University Business School stated, workplace spirituality has continued to gain acceptance as a topic of study in business schools across the country. As such, he proposes 6 components of a model for workplace spirituality, and one of the components is to promote vocation. He adds, companies that understand workplace spirituality go beyond being supportive of learning and development by helping employees develop a sense of calling or identification of passion about their lives and their work. Such companies emphasize the discovery and appropriate utilization of individual giftedness and encourage employees to use their unique skills within the organization.
These are our guiding questions. In regards to embodied learning, think about an important event or meeting happening this week at home or in your organization. Reflect on how you feel about this event or meeting. What is your body communicating to you and to others? And would you consider a power pose before it? To test Amy Cuddy's premise that the body influences the mind. For spiritual learning, we now know that spiritual learning uses myths, symbols, images to make sense or meaning of our experiences. Can you think of a myth, symbol, or imagine or an image that made sense, creating meaning, or a past or present experience? Feel free to attach images to your initial post. And lastly, do you agree with Kent Rhodes that companies who seek to have a workplace spirituality can do so by helping employees develop a sense of calling, or identification, or passion about their lives and their work? If so, how can they do that?